One of my all-time favorite quotes was said by Madeline Miller as she authored one of my favorite novels, which is called Circe. And it was said specifically by Circe in the novel, but again, Madeline Miller is the one who wrote it, so I'm going to give her the credit of the quote. And the quote itself says, "I cannot stand this world a moment longer." And it's replied to with, "Then, my child, make another." And I love that for so many reasons. And if you read the novel, you'll go on to see that the character who said they couldn't stand the world and was told to make another one continues to do incredibly self-empowering things that then extend into the rest of the world and change the way that it works. And she changes her own world in the process. And I'm bringing that quote up today because the focus of this episode is going to be how to make the world that we want to see. And I really want you to tune into this one if you're feeling a little bit despondent or sad or heartbroken at the way the world is, or maybe even powerless to stop it. I'm here today to tell you that you are incredibly powerful and you have much more of an ability to change the world, specifically your world, but the world at large than you think. And so I'm going to begin by just sharing with you that my belief in the power of creating a beautiful world, even in the midst of a depressing and chaotic one, stems from my work as a teacher, quite honestly. And I bring it up because it can often be really disheartening to teach, right? It can be really overwhelming in that you're dealing with a lot of behavioral issues. Sometimes kids are screaming at you, swearing at you, or more often than not in today's age, due to screen addiction and entertainment culture, you're dealing with kids who just seem apathetic. Like no matter how passionate you are, no matter how much you believe in what you're saying, and no matter how much you believe in them and you want so badly to build success, to build strong, confident teenagers who go off to do amazing, revolutionary things that will benefit themselves and the whole world. No matter how much you believe in them, it often can feel like you're just talking to a wall because you have kids sneaking, on their phones under their desks or talking over you, or in some cases, unfortunately, storming out of your class or swearing at you. For no reason that you can identify, because of course the real reasons are very much buried in their psyches. But my point is that even in the midst of such chaos, beautiful change can be created. And I want to, one of my all-time favorite quotes was said by Madeline Miller as she authored one of my favorite novels, which is called Circe. And it was said specifically by Circe in the novel, but again, Madeline Miller is the one who wrote it, so I'm going to give her the credit of the quote. And the quote itself says, "I cannot stand this world a moment longer." And it's replied to with, "Then, my child, make another." And I love that for so many reasons. And if you read the novel, you'll go on to see that the character who said they couldn't stand the world and was told to make another one continues to do incredibly self-empowering things that then extend into the rest of the world and change the way that it works. And she changes her own world in the process. And I'm bringing that quote up today because the focus of this episode is going to be how to make the world that we want to see. And I really want you to tune into this one if you're feeling a little bit despondent or sad or heartbroken at the way the world is, or maybe even powerless to stop it. I'm here today to tell you that you are incredibly powerful and you have much more of an ability to change the world, specifically your world, but the world at large than you think. And so I'm going to begin by just sharing with you that my belief in the power of creating a beautiful world, even in the midst of a depressing and chaotic one, stems from my work as a teacher, quite honestly. And I bring it up because it can often be really disheartening to teach, right? It can be really overwhelming in that you're dealing with a lot of behavioral issues. Sometimes kids are screaming at you, swearing at you, or more often than not in today's age, due to screen addiction and entertainment culture, you're dealing with kids who just seem apathetic. Like, no matter how passionate you are, no matter how much you believe in what you're saying, and no matter how much you believe in them and you want so badly to build success, to build strong, confident teenagers who go off to do amazing, revolutionary things that will benefit themselves and the whole world. No matter how much you believe in them, it often can feel like you're just talking to a wall, because you have kids sneaking, on their phones under their desks, or talking over you, or in some cases, unfortunately, storming out of your class or swearing at you. For no reason that you can identify, because of course the real reasons are very much buried in their psyches. But my point is that even in the midst of such chaos, beautiful change can be created. And I want to emphasize that point by reading a note from a student that I built a very powerful bond with at one of my recent teaching jobs. And she hadn't expressed this to me, by the way, until the last day of school. And so, I had taught her for nearly a year. And like I said, I had built a bond with her, but I had no idea that she felt this way until she gave me this note on the last day of school. So I'm going to read it to you, and it's very powerful and emotional, so please tune in. I want to start and say thank you. Thank you for teaching me life lessons and how to be confident in my own skin. Many times this year, I was at my lowest. As a teenage girl that struggles with mental health, I often feel alone and that no one understands. But you showed that you do. Not everyone listens to your speeches talking about life and things that you went through, but I did. From me listening, I've noticed that we had a lot of the same struggles and have gone through some of the same things. Without your side talks this year, I would still feel alone. I hope you know that if not everyone is listening, someone is, because they need to hear it. Your class made me feel safe in a school surrounded by fights and negativity. Also, sorry for me and my friend for always having side conversations. You encouraged not just us students to write stories, but to write our own stories and share our emotions. You talk about feeling energy and how you can sense it. Sometimes the room's energy was off, but our little corner still felt comforting. I've never had a teacher I connected with like this until now. And as you leave this school to do bigger things and write more amazing books, I hope you know that you made a difference in this student's life. And so she actually quoted Oprah at the very end of the letter, where she said, "You define your own life. Don't let other people write your script." And again, that was Oprah. And that was written by a 15-year-old, okay? And it was so beautifully done. And I'm reading it to you because everything she said in there was true. There were many days, like I said, I didn't feel like anybody was listening. Even this student, humbly admitted that sometimes she would be having off-topic side conversations and, would seem like things weren't really sinking in. Of course, in an ideal world, everybody would want excited learners, right, who listen and speak at an equal rate, and everybody's got this aptitude and excitement for growth and learning and all that stuff. And of course, I think we should always strive for that. But I read her note to encourage you in whatever walk of life you're in, or if you're frustrated by our current cultural, political, everything climate, to keep building the world that you want to see. And I hope, because I'm speaking to those of you who want to build a world that is more equal and beneficial and abundant for all, not you creeps out there who are power-hungry jerks that want to step on other people, okay? Do not build that world. I'm speaking to the people who want to build an equal world. And I want to let you know that, and I can't emphasize enough how much I want you to believe in the impact that you have every single day. Because I know when you hear the very loud voices on the TV, or you see all these people with multi-billion dollars who seem to do whatever they want, it can be easy to feel so small, especially in those little corners of Ohio, if you're there, or your tiny little, I don't know about Rhode Island. I was going to bring up Rhode Island, like your tiny sand pit, but I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. I've never been to Rhode Island. I just know it's like the smallest state ever. So wherever people live in Rhode Island, or just if you feel like your impact is not significant, I can promise you that it is. And there are powerful energies that move in this world that impact each other. No leader in any country, place, world would be where they're at without their followers. Their followers are everything. So to explain this in a little bit more detail, when I was teaching, I believed in a world where my students believed in their own voices. And as you can hear in that letter, that came out, right? I wanted them to own their own stories, to know the power of their own stories, to know the power of their voice. And every day I would walk into that class with that purpose, no matter what I was teaching. And as I shared before, it often didn't seem like I was getting anywhere. And there were lots of things dragging me down that were overwhelming. I was one person in a system comprised of hundreds and thousands of people, But as her letter so beautifully illustrated, I was getting through. I was planting seeds, right? And that's a lot of what life is. We're out there trying to plant our seeds of humility, kindness, comfort, service, and we don't always see the impact of that right away. But the most important thing is that you know what kind of a world you want to make, and you can control yourself, right? We've talked about the let them theory with Mel Robbins. Let other people do what they're going to do, but let me take ownership of what it is that I can control, and that's me. And so what you need to do, if you have a world that you want to make, whether that is a world where people serve each other, where people are creative, do that thing to the best of your ability, even if it feels like you're not getting anywhere. Even if it feels like there's insurmountable obstacles, I promise, if you focus on you and your message and your intentions, you will start to make waves. You will start to make waves. I want to talk candidly about our political climate for a minute, because that's a lot of what this is about. I think where Kamala Harris went wrong in her candidacy, right, in her running, is she focused too much on what Donald Trump was doing and not doing, okay? That's very evident in a lot of the interviews that were done with her. She also focused on stories that were not her own, right? She focused on stories of women who were forced to have abortions and things like that. And while I admire her willingness to empathize with those women and to actually be humble enough to get to know stories that applied to real people, I sensed a disconnect between her and the stories. The main point that I heard her emphasize a lot is that she faced Donald Trump's type as a prosecuting attorney, right? I know the type. Okay, well, that got me for a second, but why does it matter to you to come up against that type? What are you trying to do? I think what Kamala Harris missed dearly in her candidacy was her purpose. Why are you running? And what are you gonna do? What world are you gonna make? What are you passionate about? I can also relate to her too. I can relate to her in that it's easy to become obsessed with the whims of a narcissist because they will do and say anything. I think we can all admit Donald Trump is incredibly entertaining. Look at how much goddamn media coverage that man has. I don't think we had any, comparable media coverage of any other president. Narcissists are entertaining. They're crazy, right? If you know from listening to this show that I unfortunately have known a narcissist very intimately and became addicted to the crazy things that she would say and do. Because that's how it works. When somebody says and does anything and is just this walking epitome of just a disaster. It's entertaining. You can get caught up in it, and you can get caught up in your furiousness at them, the nerve that they have, right? I think Kamala Harris got caught up in the nerve that Donald Trump has. I think our social media world is getting caught up in the nerve that Donald Trump has. All you have to do is click into whatever social media you have, and within seconds, you will see a shared post about the next crazy thing that he's doing. I do not think that this is productive. I do not think it's productive at all. Because as I said before, the piece that I think Harris was missing, and the piece that all these people who just continually share the next crazy thing that Donald Trump is doing, is that when you get caught up in the obsessive whims of a narcissist, that's all you focus on. You don't focus on the control and power that you have, which is to make the world that you want to see. And I promise you, the difference that you are making in your own community has a profound impact, even if you can't see it. And so I bring up my story about my student and my teaching experience, and where I think Harris fell a little bit short, to emphasize 2 points, really, which is, first of all, when you want the world to be different, when you want the world to be more equal, when you want the world to be more loving, kind, caring, beautiful, respectful, do not get caught up in the crazy whims of the people who are trying to do the opposite of that. Don't let them get so deep under your skin that you become the parasite that you're obsessing over. Remember who you are. And the way that you do it, and I can tell you this from personal experience of being addicted to the whims of a narcissist, the way that you sort of unhook those claws is you come back to yourself, which is something that all of us kind of need to do anyway. And by coming back to yourself, I mean spending those quiet moments where you identify, what are my values? What kind of a world do I want to see? And how can I make that? I wanted to see a world, and I still want to see a world, where people understand their significance, where they don't struggle with suicide ideation and depression and isolation because they know that their world and their story have a significant impact. That's what I want, and that's what I tried to teach when I was a teacher. I tried to tell the young people that I was very honored to work with that their stories mattered, that their impact genuinely mattered, their voice genuinely mattered. I want to live in a world where people believe that, because the more that you genuinely believe in yourself, the more that you can believe in others, and the less you play games, right? The less you play those comparison games, or those games where you try to knock someone down to make yourself feel better. The more that we believe in who we are, the more we can celebrate and encourage the success and development of others. I remembered that that's the world that I wanted to make. And so when it comes to this first thing, don't get caught up in the evil of others. I think it's good to be aware of what's going on, but educate yourself and then move back to what you're trying to do. Because I promise you, it makes a difference. It absolutely does make a difference. And I'll cite, Ed Milet as an example. His father was an alcoholic. He chose to get sober. His father was an everyday American living his life and struggling with the disease of addiction. He made a choice to get sober, which changed the way that he parented his children, which caused Ed Milet to grow up and want to do something inspirational just like his father did. And his father not only got sober for himself and his family, but he then went on to help other addicts. If you read Ed Milet's book or you listen to his podcast, you'll hear him talk about how his father had names of all these other people that he was helping, these other alcoholics who he was helping, that he would call and check in with. Ed Milet found that inspirational. He saw the impact that just choosing to take care of ourselves can have. So take care of yourself. Identify what's important to you. I would guess, based on what I've read and listened to about Ed Milet's dad, is that he valued the sobriety and good health that he found once he made his way to it, and he wanted other people to experience that. He wanted other people to experience the power of sobriety and the vitality that life itself has to offer. And so he chose to spread that, which then in turn inspired his son to want to help other people. And now Ed Mylett is one of the most sought after speakers in the world. I don't agree with everything that he says, but I do agree with the self-empowerment pieces that he encourages. Because if you listen to his podcast, the Ed Mylett Show, where you read his book, you can see that this is a man committed to wanting people to live their best and healthiest lives, to challenge people to meet their goals, to have that endurance. And he interviews inspirational people who do the same. And they do the same by reflecting on their corner of the world and using what they have learned from their experiences and their skill sets and applying that to the betterment of the world. To give you an example, his most recent interview was with a man who used to be a Navy SEAL. And what he's working on now is employing breathing techniques that he learned as a Navy SEAL, learning how, to use breath and to, pick particular ways to endure really harsh circumstances. He's using some of those lessons to help people kind of work in their everyday life with whatever chaos or stress they might be dealing with. So again, go over to Ed Mylett's Ed Mylett Show podcast, and you can see, I forget what the guy's name is. Maybe I don't forget. It's like Rich Divany or something like that. I'm like 90% sure that's what his name is. But either way, go over to the Ed Mylett Show and just scroll until you see Navy SEAL interview, and you can hear all about it. And as you hear this man speak, he just sounds so humble and kind, and like he just wants to share this incredible knowledge that he has with the world. And all of that relates to my point of focus on what you're doing. Don't get caught up in what the evil people are doing, because it's very easy to do. But you have the most powerful impact when you focus on you and your purpose and believe that you actually can make a difference in what you're doing. Human beings are meant to live connected together, not divided. We are meant to live together. And as such, I believe the energy that we have spreads. Whatever energy we're carrying and putting out there, it spreads. It's meant to. Believe that you can have an impact, and that impact matters. It 100% matters. And so I think I said a couple minutes ago that I have 2 suggestions for you, if you want to make a better world, and I'm kind of combining both of them, because the first one is don't get caught up in what the evil people are doing. And the second one is clearly identify your purpose. Get to know yourself. Get to know your values and live them. And you will inspire the rest of the world to do the same. Get to know yourself and your values. What's important to you, and encourage the rest of the world to do the same. Now, for me personally, like I said, I think, where Miss Harris went wrong is she got caught up in the whims of a narcissist. And it's very difficult to break free from that. But it happens step by step. And again, I can tell you step by step the way that I did it. And I encourage those of you, if you kind of know, you're like, yep, I am getting caught up in the social media sharing, and I am getting caught up in this and that. Those of you who recognize that you maybe are getting caught up in that, or maybe it's not necessarily the social media political stuff, maybe you're just caught up in the frustration and anger of somebody who's been actively trying to bring you down, whether that's the criticism of a family member, or, a vengeful ex, or a frenemy who's not really your friend, it's someone you've kind of kept around, but really you're in secret competition with each other, and you're constantly kind of knocking each other down. Or maybe you have a neighbor that drives you insane. Whoever it is, I encourage you to actively, number one, stop talking about that person, because the more that you talk about them, the more that they're on your mind. Stop talking about them and change the conversation to your passions, your drives, because the more you focus your attention on your passion and drives, the more that you're going to move your mind and body toward that. Because we're constantly talking about the person that's driving you crazy leads is just to you feeling more tense and on edge and frustrated and obsessed and just waiting for them to fail. And when you're so busy just waiting for them to fail, you forget what matters to you. You forget what's important to you. And if you want other people to believe in the kind, humble, and beautiful world that you're building, you have to believe in it. You have to have your own story with it. You have to have your own story. What if you work at a gas station right now and the kind interaction that you have with the elderly woman that comes in to buy her gum is the inspirational story that you can then go on to tell the CEO of the company that you want to start, or whatever it is. Build your own stories. Have your own genuine interactions. Be genuine. That is what is going to make the impact. And it starts with small steps every day. Quit talking about the person who's bothering you. Quit sharing their shit. Start talking about the things that matter to you. Start talking about your dreams. Start focusing on the positive interactions that you have. That's what I started to do with teaching, because it's really easy to get caught up in the frustration of, who was talking over me and who swore at who and who walked out of class and who was high that day or whatever. It's really easy to get caught up in that. But instead, for myself, and for even just sharing with my husband at the end of the day, I started telling the stories of the kids who were listening. I started sharing stories about the kid who would write me a note saying, "Hey, thank you, that was fun today." I started sharing the stories of the kid who wrote one paragraph where, maybe their first paragraph of the year, whatever it was, of the kid who said something funny. I started making a point to tell the stories that were inspirational and encouraging rather than the stories that brought me down and made me feel hopeless about what I was doing. So as you make this world that you want to see, make sure to make a point to share the stories that are encouraging to you. And what will naturally happen is your mind will then more closely fixate on those encouraging pieces, and you'll be even more encouraged to make more of those moments. There's always going to be negativity and chaos and evil people spouting whatever bullshit they want to spout. But it's so much easier to kind of bat that away and charge forward with the world that you want when you make that your focus of your everyday interactions. And my hope is that the more that we have people focusing on the positivity and impactful nature of what they're doing, the more we will just make a world that's what it is. The more that we will usher in leaders who care about service to others. I believe that it's possible. People like Jay Shetty don't become so big because the world isn't ready to believe in lives of service, right? There's a reason that he has such a platform. And it's because people out there are wanting something more. They're wanting something genuine. They're wanting to believe in a world where people share with each other. And I want to end this with encouraging you to read a story that I wrote. It's very magical, and it's available for free on my website right now, lovingcreatively.com. If you go and click on short stories on my website, you will be led to a story called Messages from the Swamp Air. And again, it's a short story that you can read for free in an afternoon or an evening. And I don't want to give it away, but basically it's about a hero who's frustrated with her political climate and befriends Bigfoot near a swamp. And together, she and Bigfoot save the world or encourage the world to save itself. And this hero herself has some magical abilities. But to write this story, I used some of the Ojibwe knowledge that I'm very grateful to have of Bigfoot or Kichisabe as the lesson for walking upright, walking honestly, living a life that you're proud of, and as well as some bits of the Ojibwe language. And I used it to write this story about creating a world where we are proud of ourselves, where we tap into the magic in ourselves, where we tap into the magic of nature and the universe to create a place that is sustainable and beautiful for all. I wrote the story to be a vision of the beginning of a future of this country where we serve each other and we honor the people who are here first and choose to learn from them rather than colonize them. A vision of how we can all kind of come together and do that now. And I wrote it in a very magical way because I can tell you that human beings coming together and believing in themselves is a very magical thing. So again, please go read Messages from the Swamp Air. It's on my website, www.lovingcreatively.com, but I'll link it in the episode description too. And I can't encourage you enough as I wrap this episode up to start taking the steps. Take the steps. If you're caught up in someone who's trying to destroy your life, take the first step of recognizing how much you might be talking about them and thinking about them. And then take that step to replace that negative thought with, well, what's important to you? What kind of behaviors do you wish people would show? Is that kindness? Is that service? Is that empathy? Think about that, and then think about how you are doing those behaviors. Think about the kindness that you're showing to people. Think about how whatever your job is or whatever, maybe you're a part of a community organization or your family. See how you can be more intentional about living those values and talk about those values. Do you have some creative ideas? Even better. I can promise you that creativity is one of the most powerful antidotes to breaking free from being addicted to abuse or to narcissism or to negativity. The act of creating is such a powerful way to get your subconscious and your physical body to focus on something else. And there's so many ways to be creative. Maybe you want to learn how to play guitar. Maybe you're an entrepreneur and you want to create a business. Maybe you want to plant a garden, whether that's at your house or at a local community garden. Think about what you want to put in that garden and why. Maybe you're a writer like me. Maybe you have a story that needs to be told. Start writing it. Maybe you're a parent and you've been focusing a lot on, again, the people who are trying to drag your family down. Well, put the phone away, stop thinking about those people and go outside with your kids. I can promise you, even if your kids are kind of addicted to screens right now, if you force them to leave those screens at home, they're going to groan about it, but they will very quickly go outside and just connect with the world around them. I recently did this with all of my kids. We went to a nature center and forced them to leave their electronics at home, and they groaned. But by the time they got there, that natural human instinct kind of comes out. And before you know it, they're rolling down hills or hiding behind trees or making up songs and dances in the middle of of a sand pit or whatever it is. So detach from that negativity and do something with your kids where you're really connecting with them, because that'll make a difference too. Whatever it is that you're passionate about, there's so many ways to be creative. Focus on what you're making. My mom really likes to scrapbook. She's made so many beautiful albums. She's collected all of these memories of important, family events, and she's made them into these images and books that will last forever. That's another way to be creative, Start printing some of your pictures. You can get them for pretty cheap at your, local pharmacy, or order them on Google Photos or Shutterfly or whatever, and start making things. But be creative. And I promise you, if you just spend some quiet time with yourself, you will discover pretty quickly what you are naturally kind of pulled towards. Just write a journal. What can I be creative with? And give yourself a minute to come up with the answer. What am I passionate about? Give yourself a minute to come up with the answer. What are my values? Give yourself a minute. And then from there, you can build and build and build. And your impact absolutely matters. We human beings are all connected. Even if we don't, like to acknowledge it or admit it, we are. And we all impact the way that this world is made. And so if you are unhappy with the way the world currently is, detach from those negative, obsessive messages about all the crazy shit that's going on and start putting your energy towards making something better. so that when you inevitably have a platform where people will listen to you, you've got a story, you've got passion, you've got reasons for encouraging other people to want to build the world that you envision. And again, I hope you're someone who envisions a world of kindness and service and all that. We don't need any more crazy dictators, okay? So invest in yourself, invest in your values and your creativity, and believe in the power of the impact you can have, and go read Messages from the Swamp Air. It's a magical ass story, I can tell you that right now. Like it came to me in the dead of night from the other world, okay? So it was really beautiful to write, and you can read it for free, so why wouldn't you? Again, go over to lovingcreatively.com and see what that story might inspire you to do. And as I cough my way out of this episode, because I was so passionate about speaking to you, I want to end by once again thanking you for coming.